If you're here, thank you for being here. I am launching this podcast as a solo endeavor, and my intentions in this podcast are to bridge gaps between people. My vision is to interview people throughout the world and help bring you their perspectives. What do I mean by that? I mean, for my whole life, people have confided in me, all kinds of people, strangers, right? And I've always not taken that lightly. I've always been very grateful, right? I acknowledge that it's a very sacred gift for people to do that. And it also comes really easily at the same time. I have to sneeze. Ooh. Maybe not. Okay. And people tell the best stories. I love the stories. There's so much learning. I've been in conscious spiritual awakening probably since about the time that I was 8 or so. Almost 3 decades, not quite. And I just want to bring that to you. Here in this first episode, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my credentials. I don't like to talk about them because people view me differently when they do know about my life experiences and credentials. I have done a lot in my lifetime. I am a quick learner. The multiple intelligences tests, I know there's several ones, but there's this one that has like 8 different levels of intelligence. I'm pretty dang even across all 8 of them and really highly competent in all 8 of them. And I've always been that way, and I was raised by really well-rounded people. My parents were super opposite one another. My parents were older, by which I mean they were in their mid to late 30s when they had me, and I had 2 older sisters who were in their mid to late teens, no, early to mid teens or something when I was born. And I was raised by my grandparents also. So I grew up around a ton of wisdom and life experience. I don't take that lightly. And yeah, so I have accomplished a lot. I have a lot of experience. But that shouldn't be what matters. What my credentials are shouldn't be what matters, right? I think what matters is how I treat people and how I show up for you too. And so I guess I'll just go into that even though I don't want to. Let's get into it. Okay. So then, as of right now, I'm a licensed clinical social worker supervisor. That means I'm licensed to supervise master level clinicians, people that are trying to be therapists, basically. And I'm a certified sex addiction therapist, so a CSAT. I'm a CMAT also, which is a certified multiple addictions therapist. My specialty is in eating disorders, but I do know a lot about different addictions, how they interface, and so forth. I am a certified integrative mental health practitioner. I'm certified in DBT. I am a complex trauma professional, clinical mental health nutrition, clinical specialist, something like that. There's letters missing in that acronym. And I am EMDR trained, and I'm a consultant in training, which means people who are trying to go through their certification process in EMDR, I can provide some of the hours for that. I studied shamanic Reiki, so really what that is shamanism and Reiki at the same time. And I took Shamanic Reiki levels 1 to Master Practitioner, and then I spent an extra 3 years on top of that to learn to teach Reiki and shamanism. I consider myself a shaman. I was raised that way. I was raised knowing a lot of things. I was raised really intuitively, by which I mean, like, I had a lot of spiritual gifts, still do. I was just super self-aware, and I'm blessed enough that my parents, siblings, nieces, nephews, grandparents, literally everybody who surrounded me my whole life, that door was open to talk about, and that's really beautiful. It's just, I don't know. I also grew up Catholic, and so while I grew up in the charismatic sector of Catholicism in a very Mexican church with people who are indigenous or mestizo like me, then like it was open, and at the end of the day still it was very Catholic and traditional. So it's an interesting mix of that. Professionally, is there anything else to say? I'm also certified in neuro-emotional technique. Okay, so I'm very much into integrated mental health, and that's what you're going to find a lot of these themes here of this podcast are going to be around addiction, complex trauma, and integrative mental health, and just overall integrative health and resiliency and different things like that. Did I mention addictions? Also addictions, eating disorders, all that stuff. Then it's hard. So like my vision is I'm going to be interviewing people for the most part, but here I am by myself, which is fine. Just not used to that. And so trying to keep you awake too, honestly. Cool. So then I'm also exploring a couple of other techniques right now in applied kinesiology. And so one is contact reflex analysis. I am pending certification for that here in 2.5 months. And that was founded by Dr. Dick Versendahl. He was a chiropractor. And then the last one that I'll mention at this time is the Leibowitz method. So Doctors Michael and Noah Leibowitz, also chiropractors. That is a modality that goes over muscle testing, root causes, and being able to test supplements to be able to help remedy those root cause ailments that people have that lead to different symptoms, like illnesses and chronic illnesses and pains and mental health challenges and things like that. So you'll hear about it. I'll interview colleagues and things as they go along, though. Just wanted to mention that briefly. And I am pretty eclectic as a therapist. I don't see a ton of clients these days. I own my own company. It's a group practice. And I supervise and I administer for the most part these days. And really, I know a lot. The person that's been with me the longest at this point, I've known for she's been working for 5.5 years, so it's going to be 6 years this year. And there's so much that I've taught her, and there's so much more up in my head that I don't know. It's just, I have so much to teach, and this really is beyond me, and I feel like God is calling me to just teach the masses what it is that I know. And I'll go back and say again, really, I consider myself a real in-betweener. I have a YouTube channel too. It's the Love is Healing LLC YouTube channel. I'm trying to remain consistent with branding and all. But yeah, so you can find some videos there. I have an origin story video there. And it'll provide a little bit more than what I have here, though. I'll say I've always been an in-betweener, like not quite rich, not quite poor, kind of educated, but not Ivy League educated, but also not completely ignorant. And I guess ignorant. Ignorant is the word that I do want to use, right? Like, it's not like I didn't know stuff, but I don't know. Was it the best of the best education? In some ways, yeah, because it was tailored to me and it provided everything that I needed. But was it top notch, like on paper or according to society standards? Probably not. And so, yes, I consider myself Christian and Catholic. And at the same time, I know that there's more to life than that. I do believe that religion is corrupt. And I do believe that we are created in God's image. And at that same time, there's just so much innate intelligence within us. But I do believe that God created us with chakra systems and with etheric bodies, so energy bodies and different things like that. I can't deny that. And really, at this point, it is starting to become science-backed. And so, don't know. I guess really, in recording this episode and prepping for it energetically, I started my business a bit over 7 years ago. This Love is Healing. And yes, the ultimate goal and vision was to bring people closer to God in their own way, because I know that for the most part, people who strayed away from God had a lot of religious trauma. And it's like they love God and they wanted to be good kids and be pious and different things like that, but they were raised by parents who didn't know enough about their religion or their beliefs or their own values. So then there's a lot of hypocrisy that people grew up with as children, and they lost their faith and they lost their way. But I know, 99.9% of the people I've ever met have really good and pure hearts, at least deep down. So, maybe even 100% of the people that I met, but who knows? Definitely at least 99.9% of all the thousands of people I've ever met. And with that, just, yeah, is this podcast for you? I think if you're going to be open-minded or you want to be open-minded or you want to be open to other perspectives, yeah, why not, right? That's really the whole point of this podcast, is to help you expand your mindset, perhaps in some ways to build tolerance among people, to open conversations and open communication, and to foster growth and mutuality. Because really, I only know human nature to be oriented towards growth and connection. It's just that we see things differently, right? Maybe some of us are conservatives and some of us are liberals. Okay, fine. And we're on opposite sides of the political spectrum. Some of us are libertarian, we're more moderate. That's fine. But what does everybody want at the end of the day? They want what's best for everybody. How that looks different. But what everybody wants is what's best for everybody. And what's best for themselves. Right? And they want the government run the way that they want it run. Which again looks different in those 4 different situations. And yeah, given any other vantage point, the other people could look like they're wrong. It doesn't mean that there's a black and white wrong. No. So please listen at your own discretion, right? I'm going to discuss a lot of different topics, and most of them are probably going to be controversial with the intention to open up your mind. I'm going to do my best to bring on, I'm going to, for sure, bring on some experts. Yes, that is the aim, right? Because I can, because it's fun, because I love to converse. So, just going back a little bit, my parents are from Mexico. One of my parents was super liberal, the other one was super conservative. I grew up in between both of those. One was more educated, one was not. kind of. They're both educated. In Mexico, there's like this whole thing about like having class or something like that that really has informed the political structure. So, sorry, the sociological structures, societal structures. And so one of my parents had less class than the other one, grew up with more money than the other one. And so I did grow up in a lot of extremes. And at the same time, they still loved each other. They still showed up for one another. And discussions were respectful by and large, especially when there were divergences in opinions, which I love. That's such a blessed way to grow up. Like I said, I grew up around other family, really like 4 generations, which is amazing. I love it. And I love family and sure. So growing up, I was really exposed to a lot of different things. I was exposed to my mom being a nurse, saw a bunch of medical stuff, holistic and conventional. My dad was an engineer, and so he was very intellectual and logical. At the same time, he wanted to be a priest, but he didn't become a priest. And so he loved religion and theology and spirituality. And so straight up, conversations at my house, yes. Talking about spirits or intuitions or dreams or ailments, holistic treatments, any of these things were discussed on a regular basis, which again was amazing. And so that's the context that I'm coming from. I was very much an open book. And again, my parents were wiser and older when they had me, so then they were more open to having these conversations, and they had deeper levels of awareness than the parents that my sisters had. Fortunate for me, unfortunate for them, but it happens, right? And then I'll just mention it. I'm the baby of the family. And I think that informs a lot of who I am. And yeah, I learned a lot about astrology. Grew up watching some things around astrology. Grew up going to church every Sunday. And while I grew up in America, I grew up in Southern California, and I grew up in a city that was primarily Mexican. And again, I'm Mexican. So then I didn't really feel like I was in America until after I entered undergrad for a brief moment. And then really not until after I turned 30. Really, honestly, when I moved to Texas. So other than that, it hasn't really felt like I've lived in America. Even though obviously I have. It's just different because I've lived in other states that have majority populations, and so most of them were Latino. And yeah, I think that's all I feel like saying right now on that. Lots of exposures to lots of different ideas, lots of different people. My dad was in recovery from alcohol abuse, misuse, and so I'm a bit familiar with the 12 steps and things like that. Grew up around a lot of addiction, lots of addiction in my family. My mom, I'll say sex addiction, alcoholism, definitely very rampant in my family. Love addiction, love avoidance, sexual anorexia, eating disorders, personality disorders, addiction to marijuana, for the most part. That covers the majority of the addictions that I know of. And then like my grandma on one side was a medicine woman of some kind. She read tarot, but it was a Spanish tarot. I'm not familiar with it. So she did that. I'm assuming she also did cleanses and things like that. My grandma on the other side knew a lot about herbalism, grew up on a farm, was one of 13 kids, and then her mom was very much a medicine woman too, an herbalist, and just knew how to heal from the earth and things like that, because she had to make it work. I mean, she had 13 kids, you know, she had to get creative and had to know a lot. So then I have Spaniards on either side of my family from the level of my great-grandparents. I'm talking really white, pale skin, and green eyes or blue eyes, depending on the side of the family. So like super white. And then I don't really know too much beyond that generation, unfortunately, though. I'll do some research and I'll definitely bring it in if I can at some point, though. Yeah, very indigenous people, too. I mean, like, I'm kind of dark, but not really. My grandpa was very dark. Just the way that you would see a typical Native American person. Very dark. Very indigenous features. And yeah, that covers where I come from in that way. So yeah, my dad was a businessman too, and so he taught me a lot about entrepreneurship and spiritual development and personal growth and leadership. And he read about Dale Carnegie and other people Gary Chapman, that I can't think of at the moment because I didn't prepare a script for this, which I typically don't. Then I guess I'll go into a bit more of qualifications. And again, I don't think this is necessarily for me, but maybe for people who are earth signs. I'm an air sign, I have fire as my rising sign. My astrological chart, according to Western astrology, is very balanced. Actually, it's almost across the board, like split into 4, right? Like I have all elements pretty evenly, but yeah. I know earth signs really love talking qualifications and things like that, so let's go. I studied French in high school, studied a little bit in college, studied some Italian in college. I grew up with Spanish being my first language. English is my second language. Did my best to not develop an accent, so but I've let that go, and I've incorporated and adopted my Southern California accent a little bit more, and I try to let it show because it's like I need to add color to this place where I'm currently living, and it's very not colorful. And so what else? I've been a musician. That was one of my first jobs, arguably my first job or second job. I really been trying to pin down that timeline, but first or second job was being a musician. And I mean, yeah, I played clarinet and saxophone, backup vocals, some percussion. I was a marching band and jazz band, choir, orchestra, lots of different things. But yeah, so this band, it was a Mexican band. It still exists. It has two of the primary, can't think of the words in English, band members. 2 of the founding band members there. And yeah, so we would play at weddings and casinos and church parties, like those really, really big fiestas that they have. Other random events too, like house parties, but it's more than that. Quinceañeras and weddings. I don't know if I said that. Anyway, nightclubs. So yeah, I was in that band for about 4 years. Know a lot about music. Contemplated being a music major, but I knew that I was in denial, and ultimately this path was going to be for me. Psychotherapy, being integrative, really getting to the root causes of addiction and being able to extrapolate them and extricate those and help apply that knowledge. I think personally, so I talked a little bit about addiction, my family, and different things like that. For me personally, I have overcome some addictions. I would say porn addiction, some sex addiction, but not really, more porn, and love addiction. Really, that's it. Probably emotional eating too, codependency, I would say, because I was raised that way deliberately too, especially being Mexican. But my dad straight up taught me to be codependent, probably without knowing. But anyway, yeah, so primarily that, PTSD for sure, And there was a time where my complex PTSD was so severe that I would absolutely have met criteria for borderline personality disorder. That's because the dysregulation was so bad and the neglect was so bad that I didn't have much of an internal parent and self-regulator. So I've gone through a lot of that. The PTSD still comes and goes. I've experienced a lot of betrayal trauma from partners, and also institutional betrayal trauma from family. Tough life, really. Lots of resiliency though, but yeah. And lots of angels in my life too. Then trying to figure out what else. Severe crippling depression. Couldn't get out of bed, but absolutely had to survive when I was in college. And really I was depressed from like 17 to 26, which really is a while, but I was depressed for that long. That's 9 years. Excuse me. And yeah, even despite having a lot of external success, I just can maybe break that down at a later point, but it's a lot of factors. It's that I had unresolved trauma. It's that my family really deliberately, purposefully negated my experiences, and I lent all the weight of organizing my experience to my family members because I was raised Mexican, because I was the baby, because that's how my family functioned, because it was an addicted family system, and that's where it led me into crippling depression and being extremely dysregulated and having a poor sense of self, not for lack of trying, just because it's like there was no one to guide me, really. What else? I worked in fast food, so I know how to work. I have that Mexican work ethic. I'm not, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, if I need to work, I need to work, and I'm not ashamed to get in a lower position of the corporate ladder or whatever. If I need to work, I need to work, and that's that. Right? I'm a parent, and also, oh yeah, this is cool. So, let me see. I had an excellent education. I handpicked my education. I handpicked my classes when I was an undergrad, and I'm grateful for that. I was a psychology major, and if I wasn't so depressed, I would have had a minor, but, I survived, and I came out alive, and that's saying a lot. And I didn't come out with a really high GPA because I was so depressed that I just couldn't focus and different things like that. But yeah, I did at some point come out and go to grad school. I got my master's in social work. It was an advanced generalist program, so it's not like I had a clinical specialty, but I knew that I wanted to go into therapy anyway. But in my internships, I did do early intervention, which is working with children and their parents. So children who are ages 0 to 3 who are at high risk for developing delays, whether that's developmental delays or socio-emotional delays, physical delays, anything like that. Just supporting as best that I could to kind of keep track of their milestones and support the parents and supporting the child's development, really. So that was lovely. It set me up for success. It's kind of this developmental trajectory. So that happened, and when I got out of grad school, I worked at a child advocacy center, and that was excellent. I was a therapist, and I worked with children and with parents, and so I got to learn a little bit more about that continuum. I love developmental psychology. It's amazing. It comes to me like second nature. Just just breathe it so easily. And so I got a lot of experience. And so that specialty was in complex trauma. And I got top-notch education and training and mentorship. And my clinical director at the time, Donna Lucero, is amazing. And maybe I'll publish this maybe I'll send it to her once I publish it. I haven't talked to her in a minute, but I just saw her on Facebook recently and sent her a request and she accepted it, which is cool. But I think she's retired. Anyway, really, really fond of that woman. Couldn't have asked for a better supervisor out of grad school. She's exceptional and she really shaped me. I feel emotional actually now, but she was amazing. And she opened a lot of doors for me and she believed in me and she helped me through a divorce. Tough times. But yeah, just felt this like really motherly love from her and it really kept me resilient and hopeful during those difficult times. Then I had some work in addictions. One of my other internships too was at an inpatient, but they had an IOP component of addictions, so substance abuse. And then I worked for an IOP for a little bit, and then I worked at a school. So I worked at a middle school, did some school social work there. While I was there, I working my 9 to 5. I had my 5 to 9, where I started launching this Love is Healing practice, and then COVID hit. You know, I think it's funny. I like to tell this story, but essentially, I wanted to be a digital nomad. I still do, but you know, life happens, and I had moments of that, but I guess responsibility got the best of me. But right, so I wanted to be a digital nomad, and God was like, hey, look, do this thing, open this business, shape it this way, do the psycho-spiritual lens of things and do the psychobiological aspect of things, right? So in social work, we look at the bio, psycho, social, spiritual. Most people talk about the psychological aspect if you're doing therapy and you're a social worker, but I really like to look at the other, and maybe the social too, but I like to look at the areas that need more research and development. And so I like to focus on the body and I like to focus on the spirit. And so that's what I did. And God was like, yeah, you're going to have this practice, whatever. And I was like, okay, but I'm trying to be a digital nomad. He's like, yeah, that's cool. Do this anyway. And then I was like, fine. And then I launched it, and then COVID hit. And I was like, oh, it works out. People are going to want to do video therapy now. And or have to. So yeah, I just like to tell a little joke. Though, yeah, it's been great. And then, right, I mean, I think that's the gist. I got these certifications like integrated mental health. Like I was already doing that, but like to get something where I was certified. And then the mental health nutrition, like, yeah, to make me more legit, right? Which really helps, and it bridges the gap with all this applied kinesiology stuff that I'm learning now and applying now and teaching now. And then the sex addiction and the multiple addictions, I just think that's so necessary and also intricate and also nuanced and also complex, that it is very satisfying on an intellectual level, and at the same time, I mean, just so rich, so rich. And I met a lot of amazing colleagues along the way, and yeah, then I love to travel, and I've met tons of people, like literally tens of thousands of people in my lifetime. Like, who hasn't? Maybe even hundreds. But I love to talk to people. I'm an extrovert, though I'm pretty discerning in who I talk to and approach and things. And if things are aligned, you know, I'll talk to them and things like that. I love to read, apparently. That's an identity that I've had to work through and then also break out of denial. But I do love to learn, and I mean, I'll read an actual book if I have to, but I prefer to do audiobooks because I'm at the gym or I'm driving places, and that's just an efficient use of my time, right? I don't really listen to the radio. I also dance. So there's music, I sing, I dance. Been in church choirs too. I dance Latin dance, so like salsa, and then I do swing, also ballroom dancing. Fun stuff, lots of community there. My bring that in here into one of the topics at some point in time anyway. So I love to travel, and I love to dance, and I love to learn, and I love to teach. I love to have conversations with people. I did couch surfing for a period of time also, the app, and hosted and was hosted. And so I really love that interchange of cultures and of experiences and conversations. It's just so rich. Really, I think that life comes down to connection. We all want connection. We're wired for connection. We need connection. And so that's what I'm trying to foster here. I just love humanity, and I love love, and I love connection, and that's what we're doing here. Right? I think COVID has done a number on us, and it is sad to see the state of the world as it is now. I grieve when I see all of this disconnection that has transpired, has entrenched itself into society, into our interactions. People are so strange. People don't really make eye contact anymore. No one really says hi. And then, like, there's all this sketchy stuff that's on social media that's rightfully and helpfully being posted. Also, it really triggers the amygdala a lot and makes people hypervigilant. So then you go around, walking around, saying hi to people, and you look the wrong color, or maybe you don't. Maybe you even look the right color. I don't know. People are shy and introverted, and it's like if you're attractive or something, they're attracted to you. Maybe they just won't say hi because they're scared or something, or just, I don't know, skeptical, hypervigilant, right? People look at you funny oftentimes when you walk around saying hi. I think by and large, I mean, definitely I've been in my fair share of places even recently where, like, I'll say hi and people turn up with me, which is amazing. Just it's not what it was, right? You could just walk around and be like, hey, hi, you know, walk around, hi. I love that. Not everyone does. I do. Oh, and then also neurodivergence I wanted to speak on. You heard me mention the PTSD. And then, right, I mean, definitely, like, my whole family grew up with PTSD. That's for sure, right? And would absolutely meet criteria. And then there's the fact that, I don't know, man. Like, I think I have undiagnosed PTSD. That's for one. I'm sorry, ADHD. I had a couple therapists tell me that one time. And then, like, I don't know. There's a lot going on in my family, like some learning disabilities. Yes, for sure. Some developmental delays, yeah. And then I think my dad had autism, at least Asperger's, you know. Yes, I know that's an outdated diagnosis, but legit. So yeah, that's my experience with that. I feel like one of my kids is pretty borderline. I do manage it a lot through diet and frequency medicine. I don't know what else to call it, but that really helps to reduce a lot of the symptoms. And yeah, so just want to speak on that. Sexuality too. Have a lot of different friends that are queer, and yeah, lots of experience with all these different things. And so whenever I do speak and say things, it's because this is who I am and this is how I speak, and I'm not always politically correct. And for me as a Mexican, it is not, for me as a Mexican coming from the region that I come from, right, and the family that I come from and all these things, like, it is not conducive to connection and to, like, being a part of that community, to be fully socially, oh gosh, what's the word? Politically correct. Thank you. So just want to say that. And I'm not trying to offend anybody, and I will offend people because I'm human, right? And people will get offended, and that's okay if you get offended, right? Seek support, right? And if we're going to be talking trauma and addictions and things, we're going to be triggered and things like that. I do invite you to check out our channel at Love is Healing LLC on YouTube, or even our Instagram, but I have more on YouTube at this point. But I do base a lot of the videos there off of the DBT approach. So we're doing a lot of radical acceptance, and we're practicing the coping skills, and we talk about triggers, and like I weave things in. I'll try to weave things in as we go along with this podcast, though it's an interview show. So the point is to listen to stories, sit back, go for a drive, do your workout, listen to what we're talking about, reflect, let the words wash over you, let them activate you. By which I mean let them activate your soul, let them activate your learning, let them propel you into taking action toward your life's purpose. Really, those are my intentions for the podcast. With that, I'll say thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again soon.